and he just chases iBoy down this nothing iBoy. That clip never gets old to me. That is my favorite moment from last year in terms of just comedic value alone. But yeah, I'm excited. I hope we get to see his Zilean today. It's always a treat to watch his Zilean. But certainly, when it comes to the actual meta right now, things like the Cassiopeia, even the Azir we've seen Fringe picked, and I'm sure that he's perfectly competent on things like the Orianna as well. Very much falls in the same wheelhouse.
I want to see Lulu. He used to be a Lulu mid one trick. I want to see Lulu. That's just my own personal bias coming out there. But for TT, the win condition, yes, they are still sitting on 0 wins in terms of series, but their win condition that they kind of have found themselves for has been around these Drakes and kind of dancing their way to Drake, because that's how they've found success previously in the games they didn't look too terrible on.
Yeah, so this year, TT have only managed to get 1 game win so far, and I want to kind of quickly explain how they managed to get that win for themselves. First things first is that it was a very slow early game, and I think this is by design on TT's part. They drafted this composition that had Olaf in the jungle, had Karma mid for priority there, and to be able to support the Olaf in the 2v2, and then they had Seraphine, and MF in the bot lane, so they had just like infinite bot lane priority, played a really slow game, and just focused on stacking those Drakes up. So then by the time Soul Point comes around, LNG has to come in and 5v5 you. When you've got the Seraphine MF ult combo, like your 5v5 is always going to look pretty good.
Yeah, we'll wait to see exactly if they're able to get that kind of drop, but they're coming in against a red-hot Team WE, and specifically Beishang. This guy has been the shooting star of what is a star-studded lineup coming into 2021.
Yeah, and I think the key thing to talk about as well with Beishang is not just that he's looking great as a player, because he always looks great as a player. He looked great all year last year as well. He's an exceptional jungler. But the fact that these upgrades we've seen in the solo lanes with Breathe top and Shanks mid, he's been unchained now. He doesn't just have to go down and focus bot lane every single game. He has options on the map. He can go and win through the top lane. He can win through the mid lane. He can do whatever the composition, whatever the meta calls for. So it feels like very much we have a free version of Beishang. And we've got some clips here of just him starting games off playing through the different lanes. You see here when they get a Camille for Breathe, you know how good Breathe is on the Camille. This is Curse from OMG last year. And then also playing towards Shanks when they're in the Syndra versus Orianna 1v1 as well. Obviously, this is rookie favored in the 1v1, so making sure that Shanks is set up for success. And then when you look at things like having this Galio into Leona, that's a fantastic little matchup. So playing with that Pantheon, being aggressive in the early game, and setting Jolmung up, which is kind of the classic WE start to the game, right? Going towards the bot side to set up Jolmung. You can see that that's still also an available strategy for the squad.
Yeah, I feel like for Team WE, the supporting staff around Beishang, around Jolmung, has just enabled them to play that kind of, jungle heavy style that just absolutely works out fantastically for them. And for Beishang specifically, I've been very impressed when we've seen him on something that has the global pressure, like the Pantheon, like the Talia. And even then, he still has things in the back pocket, the Aatrox, the Sejuani. This guy has shown multiple different styles, and Team WE have also shown a willingness and a drive to work with those styles.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things as well about WE is that even though this early game has fundamentally changed how they play, they don't just go bot every game now. The mid game is still pretty similar to what it used to be. It still feels like team fight or die. It still feels like that is the strat that WE loves. They are all about the 5v5 beyond kind of the 15-20 minute mark. They're going to fight you over every single Drake, and they're going to find wins in that team fighting. So I'm hoping we get to see that, because as I said before, that was one of the few strengths we've seen for TT as well.
Yeah, we'll see how they're able to do it. Of course, teams coming out now onto the stage to get themselves prepped and ready for this series. For TT, we want to see improvement. I like that they're trying something new. Is it, better to have Twilight over Captain? We'll have to wait and see. But at least they're trying to get some kind of foothold and get themselves moving in this season.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, right? Is that we get to see them making a change. We get to see something new from TT. What they started off with clearly wasn't working, so make a change, get a new player on the roster, and see what you can go with from there. Let's bear in mind as well that they were playing things like Karma with Captain, right? They were playing these kind of supportive control mages. Guess what Twyla's wheelhouse is? Supportive control mages. So, yeah, you know, it could be a recipe for success. Now we've got WE over on the other side as well.
Yep, and for WE, I just want to see them, I suppose, to continue their dominance, to continue looking good and take those, you know, those wins as quickly as you possibly can, as cleanly as you possibly can. You don't want to get a scrappy game. Like we said, for TT, in the one game they had, they took it slow. They were able to stack dragons. For Team WE, it's about denying that and about, you know, realizing how strong they can be and getting their advantages through their jungle like we've already seen.
And I feel like this is a very confident WE as well. You could see, certainly not phased being on stage here today, but I feel like this is a squad now that is, last year and in previous years, WE recently has been somewhat of a team that has been underrated and then outdone those expectations, right? Making it to playoffs regularly and not making it to any international tournaments or anything like that, but certainly outdoing the expectation, which was very low for them. This squad this year, I feel like the expectation is far higher for them, and so far, they've shown that they can live up to that expectation. The big question for this squad is, when it goes wrong, what goes wrong? Because so far it's felt clean, but no LPL team has a flawless split. It never happens, and I want to know where the weaknesses lie for this squad. And I know that sounds weird from me as like a WE fan, talking about where do the weaknesses lie, but I think it's important to trip up earlier in the split rather than later, so you have time to work on those weaknesses and improve as a team.
Yeah, and I think for Team W, you look at who they've faced so far. Rogue Warriors 2-0, V5 2-1, IG 2-1. It's been a slow, steady rise to the slightly higher teams, and then we're back down again. It's almost like a roller coaster, like slow rise, straight back down to kind of more bottom-end teams. So I want to see them dispatch, if they are going to dispatch TT, I want to see it do cleanly. But on the side of TT, I think for them, you have nothing to lose. Like we said, you know, if you're bottom of the table, then the only way is up. You can only go up from here. You can only find improvement, and that's what I want to see from them.
Yeah, and one of the lanes I'm most excited to watch from TT as well is actually this bottom lane, because especially if WE do decide to play through one of the solo lanes, let's say they get a Camille in the draft, for example, and they play through the top side, then Jolmung and Missing become a potential window for TT to abuse. We'll go into that once we get into the game. Draft is on our screen, so let's go through the bans first, shall we?
Yep, we absolutely can. We see the Orianna, the Camille by TT, the Renekton, the Ryze, the Pantheon. I like this from TT, recognizing that they don't want to give away that very, very powerful pick over to the side of Beishang.
Yeah, and TT's bans, while they are all meta picks, they're also kind of targeted bans towards WE. I mean, I already talked about the Camille for Breathe. You already talked about the Pantheon for Beishang. And then the Orianna has been the go-to pick for Shanks. It very much is what he feels comfortable on. On the side of TT, though, it means that this Olaf has made it through the bans. I'm going to lock that one in. I will say, I'm a bit surprised to see the Ryze ban. I'm guessing that's a target ban towards Twyla, but not particularly meta right now.
I think when you're bringing in someone like Twyla, you know what he plays, you know what you're kind of afraid of, and you're just going to take it off the board. You don't want to look at it, you don't want to see it, you're just going to go, look, whatever, it doesn't matter, just get it away, don't have to deal with it. And for Team WE, knowing that the Olaf has been locked in, that does leave open the Kaiser, they banned away the Jhin, so they know there's a super safe counter into that, and they're going to take the Zoe as well, so already leaning in towards more of a poke composition on the side of Team WE.
Yeah, and setting Shanks up to have a reasonable mid lane matchup, regardless of what's locked in here. I'd like to see Twyla go for something like the Syndra, which has a good matchup into the Zoe, but can also, most importantly, match the mid lane priority that Zoe will bring to that lane. Over on the side of TT, though, as I said, I'd love to see something like the Syndra. Tristana going to be locked in here with not very many AD carry bans either, so this is going to be an interesting one. I want to see Sandeep pop off on this pick.
I would love to see him pop out. And we have seen the likes of Light on LNG popping off in this Tristana. The resets you get on the rocket jump, if you can get snowballing, it just becomes absolutely insane. The only kind of thing I would be worried about is that Tristana needs levels. Her range increases with her levels, and if you can't get levels, if you get put behind, it becomes very, very difficult in that mid game to actually really get into fights and to be an influence for your team.
Yeah, kind of a feast or famine champion, but what I'm expecting from the early game is fairly slow-paced gameplay from both teams, so might give a window for TT here to build some items up first. Obviously, she is a crit 80 carry, so wants to be getting a couple of items before you really want to fight with her. But I think TC should have a window to start to stack those items before skirmishes actually happen. Alistair banned from WE here. Wouldn't be surprised to see them banning away something like Leona as well, or maybe they could pick that for themselves for missing. It's going to be the Thresh ban instead. But most importantly, trying to remove some of the supports that can really set Tristana up with the hard engage.
And I think if you're on the side of Team WE here, if TT don't ban the Leona, I feel like you take it right now. You take the Leona, gives you a hell of a lot of hard engage. It also denies TT for taking it to give over to Teen. This could be the kind of thinking behind them. Of course, Teen has played Leona, I think, twice now so far in the split out of 5 games. So, nothing looking in. And yep, there it is. Leona locked in. Kind of